What's up, everybody? P. Pardo here from Comic Book Users. Welcome to another episode of the show. Today we're going to take a look at a pretty cool character that got his start back in 1973 and would appear in his own book, featured in Marvel Spotlight, got his start in Ghost Rider, would become a on-again, off-again member of the Defenders for many, many years. I'm talking about Daimon Hellstrom, the son of Satan. So, of course, in 1973, he appears, sort of appears. You don't actually see him. You see him from the back of his head. You see some blurbs and stuff. The first official appearance is in Ghost Rider #1. And then he's also in Ghost Rider #2. But again, you only kind of really see him in shadow. And then they basically, towards the end of this issue #2, you actually do get to see him. And the storyline here, which is basically, Ghost Rider battling Satan. Well, Daimon Hellstrom, who is a professor and an exorcist, gets called in by some characters that are involved here to help with one of the female victims whose body has been taken over by Satan. And she happens to know, of course, Johnny Blaze, who's the Ghost Rider. Johnny Blaze has issues with Satan, Satan issues with him. And so they call the family of the girl calls in Daimon Hellstrom to help with it, to exorcise the demon from her body. Of course, the demon just so happens to be his father, Daimon Hellstrom. Of course, born from Satan is his father, a human is his mother. And then he, of course, struggles through much of his life to just figure out what he's all about. When he finally does find out from his mother, who is dying, that the guy that he knew as his father, who of course disappeared from their lives, was actually Satan himself, the devil himself, Satan. So of course then he forever, my father, I hate him, whatever, and this started like a whole lifelong love-hate relationship, mostly on the hate side, between father and son, of course. And his son always wanting to get revenge, and the father now, of course, has no use for his son, knows that his son has a lot of the powers that he has and could present a major problem with him. So we'll get to all that in a bit. But yeah, so he gets called to help out this situation. And then actually at the end of issue #2, he basically reveals his true nature to the family of the girl who has basically brought him in to hire him to help out the daughter and fiance. And he shows his true colors as the son of Satan, and then goes off to find his father, right? So the father at this point in time is somewhere close to the pits of hell, holding Johnny Blaze and the woman hostage. And at the time, Johnny Blaze is in his human form, right? So then we fast forward to Marvel Spotlight issue #12. And for those who've been keeping track, of course, the Ghost Rider made his first appearance in Marvel Spotlight, got his start in the Marvel Spotlight comic, which was a kind of breeding ground for a lot of the more darker, horror-related characters. They would give them a few issues of Marvel Spotlight, and if that took off, they would give them their own books. So, of course, Ghost Rider, the werewolf, right, as well, and then Daimon Hellstrom, son of Satan, right? So, Werewolf by Night. I meant to say before I just said the Werewolf by Night. So let's take a look here. So in these initial couple of issues, we've got Gary Frederick in charge of writing these stories, and Herb Trimpe, of course, from Incredible Hulk, in charge of the artwork, inked by Frank Chiaramonte. So I'm a big Herb fan. Herb Trimpe, I should say. And, I started reading this stuff when he was on the book. I'm not sure he was the best choice for a kind of more horror-oriented comic like this. First of all, he makes Daimon Hellstrom look a little bit too much like a vampire, with the sharp teeth and the very angular features and whatnot. Not sure it kind of works 100%. And one of the things that's interesting, and of course Hellstrom has this very powerful trident, right? So he's not always, he's got like two sides to him. He's got the easygoing, mild-mannered professor and exorcist Daimon Hellstrom, and then when he turns fully into the son of Satan, he becomes a totally different being. Now, I think there's some really great artwork in here. I'm just not sure it works with the nature of this type of comic. And what's crazy here is this. So this continues the story in Ghost Rider, and actually he spends a good chunk of this issue looking to find his father. And then when he does, you like build up an anticipation that like, all right, we're finally going to see the big battle of father and son, and Ghost Rider is going to take a part in it. And actuality is that Johnny Blaze basically stays in his human form, and he doesn't become the Ghost Rider at all during the brief time that they encounter each other here, and which I'll get to. They save it for all the way in the back. So, of course, there is his father, Satan, which there was a lot of talk, and there still is, that in actuality, the Satan character, which battled not only the son of Satan, but also Ghost Rider quite a bit, was actually Mephisto, or maybe not Mephisto. I never really, did they ever come up with like definitive anything on that? I don't know. So here you have, basically Daimon scares off his father and kind of rescues Johnny Blaze and the woman. And that's really it. They have like a page and a half of interaction, and they don't fight alongside each other. They don't battle each other. Just kind of really disappointing that they would introduce him in Ghost Rider, continue the story in his first issue of Marvel Spotlight, and then really don't have them interact much at all. I just thought that was like a really wasted opportunity. But here, so that's the inaugural issue of Son of Satan on his own. And I believe Herb Trimpe did the cover on this also. Pretty cool. So, off to a pretty good start. It's very dark stuff. Also, like in that first issue, and maybe even the second issue, you're not really certain whether this character is good or bad, because he is the son of Satan, so there's an evil nature and a dark nature to his character. As a human, when he's in human form, he's, good guy. But he's sort of kind of like an anti-hero. It's like he's not really a superhero. So the tone of this kind of changes quite a bit throughout the series, and they do for a while. They always have that. They let out that little bit of that the evil nature, the dark nature of his character. All right, so here we have the second issue, which is issue number 13 of Marvel Spotlight. Also Herb Trimpe and Gary Frederick on the writing and the pencils, and again, it's pretty good. Again, not 100% sold on Herb in this role with this type of thing, but I think the artwork in this issue is even better. So here you've got a lot of Satan's minions actually showing up at Daimon's home. All these demons and ghouls and things like that. And then here is basically the origin issue. So they tell you the story about how Satan goes down to Earth, or comes up to Earth, I should say, and takes human form, woos his future wife. Of course, they have children. That's right, he's not the only one. There is a sister. And here, the story is told about how he eventually reveals himself to his wife and family, who he really is, and then the demise of his mother and how he finds out, and all this kind of stuff. So this is basically your origin issue. And then descending through the house down into the pits of hell to confront his father for the first time as an adult, and seeing everything that's going on down below and who his father really is, how he acquires the trident, because of course he does battle his father in here. And there's some good splash pages. Look at that. Pretty cool. And, eventually deciding to take on and fully embrace the son of Satan mantle, but with the full intention of he wants to go after his father and destroy him for all that he's done. So again, like I said, he does take over possession of the trident, and that's basically the origin story there. So now is where it gets interesting. So now they've set that precedent, Frederick and Trimpe on writing and art. Things change for issue number 14. Now all of a sudden you have a familiar, I shouldn't say face, but a familiar name, which comes into the book. A guy named Steve Gerber takes over the writing. Of course, Steve Gerber had proven to be at the time someone who could handle the more out there characters, the horror-related characters. Of course, we know he worked on Man-Thing, Howard the Duck, Omega the Unknown, and various other things. And now we change over the artwork also, so a whole new team to Jim Mooney with Sal Trapani as the inker. And the results, I don't know, kind of good, I think. I always liked Jim Mooney as an artist. Just, again, not sure if he was 100% right for this book. But I think I like a lot of the layouts, and I like generally the tone that he gives. I'm not always sure I like the way he portrays Hellstrom, the character. I guess it's not bad. It's a little blocky. He looks a little stiff. But overall, I think the artwork generally is pretty good, and the stories are really good here. So again, this is all really dark stuff. It's a lot of original stuff. They tend to not, during the Gerber run, not to overstay the appearances of his father, Satan, because they could have spent the entire series just going back to that. And, you know, he comes up often enough. So, because how can you not, right? But you want to introduce new characters. You want to introduce new villains and stories and subplots and things like that. So we've got issue number 15. Right, cool cover there. I believe that's Romita and Kane, if I'm not mistaken. The title of the story is Black Sabbath. Issue number 16. I'm trying to remember exactly where. I think it's coming up. I think that, and this is one of the few that I bought right off the rack back in the day. Did I skip one here? Hold on. I think there's one cover that I did want to show. Yeah, that's number 3. Skip number 13. This is the first one that I ever bought. All right. This is a Johnny Romita cover. First one I bought off the rack back in the day. And then the second one I bought was the one I was just going to show you, which is issue number 17. Cool cover there. That's, I believe, a Gil Kane cover. And I'm not sure if it's like this one. This might be the... Yeah, this is the last one with Jim Mooney for now on the artwork. And again, pretty good job, I think. Stories are starting to get very, very involved. Right? We're taking the character to new places, new side characters, new sort of foes and whatnot. Lots of action, a lot of supernatural stuff going on. And here, like I like here on this page right here, you get, as you can see, like right over here, the evil part of the Hellstrom character kind of pops up quite a bit, and all of a sudden you're like, you know, all right, he's definitely got that real dark side to him. But very cool stories, very involved. This, and again, I'm sure for parents of young children who were reading comics at the time, maybe this stuff is a little too dark, you know, going deep into Satanism and, Wiccan cultures and things like that. There's a lot of that going on. Witchery and Satanism. And, like, you know, when I was a young kid and I was buying a few of these, I wasn't sure I always knew what was going on with this stuff either. I just thought it was a cool kind of dark horror-related character, and I liked all stuff like that. It's great splash pages here. This is probably my favorite issue of the Mooney run. I think he was finally starting to click with what was going on here, but that would end, and I'll show you why in a second, because then for issue number 18, we've got the first appearance in The Son of Satan on the art by none other than Mr. Gene Colan. So Gerber and Colan hooking up here. Of course, we're a little early because this is 1974. Of course, they would work extensively together in the Howard the Duck comic just a few short years, about a year and a half later. But here we've got Gene coming over, of course, working on Doctor Strange and Tomb of Dracula, and previously also Daredevil. And if you've been a follower of the Tomb of Dracula series or Doctor Strange, Chiaramonte is also doing the inks, by the way. He's continuing on as the inker of this book. You'll notice the tone of the artwork here, very, very similar to Tomb of Dracula and Doctor Strange. And to be quite honest, I think he was the best choice for this series. However, he only works on 2 issues, sadly. But as you can see, I mean, this is, when you're talking about, dark, evil, horror-themed, satanic-themed storylines, Gene Colan's, he's the guy. I mean, here, look at this. His artwork is very atmospheric, and it's hard to describe, but there's such a difference in what he does. And, all these, ghoulish characters and things. He doesn't try to make Hellstrom look like a vampire. He just, looks like the son of Satan. Really cool stuff. So that's the first issue that he works on. And then we're going to go over to issue number 19. And I'll show you a little bit of that. And that's a Gil Kane cover. Gil Kane did most of these covers. Gil Kane was just doing every possible. Gil Kane didn't do a ton of interiors. He did a good amount, but man, he was just doing covers like crazy. They kept him on salary just to do, the cover artwork. So here we have Gene Colan once again, and I gotta say, I really like him on this book. Yeah, maybe it's a little too similar looking to, like I said, the Doctor Strange and Dracula, but who cares? He was tailor-made for this type of atmospheric, gothic, horror tinge stuff. But, they only kept him for these 2 issues, and then he was off back to doing what he normally did. There's only so many, and not everybody's Jack Kirby, who can do, 8 different series at a time. So really good stuff there. And then with issue 20, and the Son of Satan's run in Marvel Spotlight went to issue number 24. And it proved to be popular enough, despite the dark nature of this, that they went off and gave him his own series. So I'll just quickly show you a little bit here. Now, once again, you got another change. So now you've got Sal Buscema with Al McWilliams on the inks. So that's the artist and inker team, along with Steve Gerber. I mean, we all love Sal, right? I think the artwork on these issues is pretty damn good. I would just maybe argue that Sal's artwork is maybe a little too clean for this. As you can see, it's really well done. I don't know, after seeing, the Colan artwork, this seems to be almost a little too perfect. It's not quite atmospheric and hazy enough. I don't know, but I like it a lot. I think it's really good. I think he's got the character down pretty well. I think I like his artwork better than Mooney's on this book, but I still am not 100% sold on either one of them. It's pretty good, though. And he would go on to do, I believe, the remainder of this run. Let me see. He definitely did issue number 21. And I believe he also did issue number 23. This is interesting. I bought this off the rack back in the day, too. You see this kind of werewolf-looking creature. His name Trog. But then when you go on the inside, Trog doesn't look anything like he does on the cover. I'm like, wait a second. That's a little bit of a bait and switch. Yeah, this is Mooney artwork as well. And like I said, quite well done. A lot of action in these. I mean, did I say Mooney? I meant Sal Buscema. Sal's... Sal and his brother John, both excellent. But if you know what I mean, it looks like a little too clean, a little too perfect, a little too bright, not kind of dark and dingy enough, and with that kind of that haze that you want from a series like this. So again, I just want to show you the Trog character who they show off on the cover and how he doesn't look anything like how he is on the cover. And he's basically on like a page and a half. That's him right there. Light-skinned, no real hair, fur. Here he's, dark, furry. Yeah. I remember buying that as a kid thinking, all right, where is this kind of a big werewolfy looking character? He's nowhere to be found in there. Yeah. All right, and then the last issue before they spun him off was issue 24. Of course, finally going to battle with his sister, Satana. And yeah, this is like the issue that, everybody was waiting for. And it does not disappoint. And here we've got Sal and Bob McLeod working on the artist and inker team. And here we've got Gerber now off the book and Chris Claremont doing the writing. And I really like the McLeod-Buscema tandem here. I think this is some of the best artwork in the Sal Buscema run on this particular series. I think they work really, really well together. The depiction of Satana is excellent. The interplay between the two, brother and sister, is very, very well done. They bring another evil female character in here, which they ultimately have to do battle with. And you get the three of them going at each other. All the fire and brimstone, everything like that. Very, very cool. And I strike for Satan. Yeah. Yeah, this is just not for kids, right? It's not for kids, but I had fun with this back in the day, and they basically leave it open. He basically kind of forms a pact with his sister in the end that should they meet again, well, we'll see what happens. But for now, we kind of helped each other here in this situation, right? So yeah. So then we move on to fairly shortly thereafter. I believe that was October. Here's December. He's already got his own series, but again, they got to mix everything up. So here, Son of Satan in his own book, but the team is completely different. And now we bring on board for the writing. We've got John Warner as the writer. I'm not really overly familiar with John Warner. And then Jim Mooney back on artwork for just a little bit. And he's also, I believe, doing his own inking. Interestingly enough, they do they put a splash page on the first page done by Jim Starlin. So that's Jim Starlin's the picture of Daimon Hellstrom. And so now we're back to Jim Mooney doing the artwork. Again, good. They're trying to keep the storylines very, very dark. I don't think these stories worked as well as some of the Gerber ones. What I find here in the Son of Satan solo book is that it's very, very dialogue heavy. And right here in the first issue, they bring his father, Satan, back into play. Very, very dialogue heavy. There's a lot going on here. And the stories tend to get a little confusing and convoluted. But it's drawn really well. It's definitely a horror mag. That I like. And they're trying to introduce new foes for him, which I also like. There's one coming up that I think works out really great. And again, you can see this pretty twisted and dark stuff. Right? So, I'm trying to remember exactly where where Jim Mooney moves off of the book because they bring in a new art team. I don't remember if it's this one or the next one. You guys don't mind. I'm just opening all these up, right? Here we go. So now with issue number 2, we've got John Warner again writing. I think he writes the rest of the series. And Sonny Trinidad on the artwork. I'm not familiar with Sonny Trinidad. I don't remember anything else he was doing. As you can see, totally different style here. Totally different style. It kind of reminds me of like when they brought on Don Perlin onto the Werewolf by Night series, taking over for Mike Plug. Really, really different. So here you can see this is drastically different, but still works well within the confines of what's going on here. But as you can see, just tons of backstory and lots of new characters here, lots of dialogue, lots of reading to do. We don't mind reading, but these stories are very involved. Very involved. And I could see maybe at the time that some of this stuff was kind of going over people's heads. And again, I'm not sure I like the way Daimon Hellstrom looks. It's just a preference thing. Right. So this team would kind of continue on now for the rest of the series. And again, only went into 8 issues. So we've got issue number 3. Again, more, Gil Kane covers. Issue number 4. Where I think it really started to take an interesting turn is with issue number 5, bringing in a brand new villain for Daimon Hellstrom, and that is Mindstorm. This is a really cool villain, and I don't know whether Mindstorm has appeared anywhere else since, but I think they were really working towards something very, very cool here, and this winds up being like a multi-issue thread, okay, which goes throughout the rest of the series. And it's same writing and art team, but this particular, and here you see Daimon and his more human guys, right? They don't go there all too often in this series, but plenty of action here. But I think this particular villain winds up being, with the exception of his father, this Mindstar character winds up being his major villain in this series. It's just a shame that he comes so late in the series. But they have lots of good battles. He's got an interesting look too. He's got like this kind of gold armor, pretty cool. And he gets over on Mr. Hellstrom there. So these battles continue into the next issue, which is issue number 6. And then, surprisingly enough, in issue number 7, they announced that this is going to be the final issue. Dwindling sales, economic this, that, blah, blah, blah. You're right. So this character was doing so well in Marvel Spotlight, and as soon as they put him in his own issue, in his own series, that's when everything started to kind of fall off. They didn't introduce any other real Marvel characters in this series at all. So we noticed a lot of other Marvel books during the 70s. They would, like when a series was starting to falter a little bit, all right, let's bring in Spider-Man, let's bring in the Hulk, let's bring in Captain America, Daredevil, Doctor Strange, blah, blah, blah. They didn't really do that here, other than, all the way initially with the Ghost Rider. And the character would show up in a couple issues of Ghost Rider, other than the first 2, I think. 16 or 17 or something like that. But this is a really good issue. So there's one more issue, but this is the final issue and was intended as the final issue. I'll get to what the actual final issue is in a second. But here we tie up this whole story against Mindstar. And, okay, so here again we've got John Warner and Sonny Trinidad working on the story and the artwork. Again, I really like this villain, and he's pretty good. And here he throws all his minions at Son of Satan here. And there's the whole, like on the front cover, you got the whole thing with the room with the mirrors. All goes down in here. Very, very cool. But as you can see, very, very dialogue heavy. So there's a lot to read with these. They're throwing all sorts of kind of, interesting tidbits at you. And, maybe, like I said, maybe just what was going on in this book was just a little bit too involved for some readers. But good stuff nonetheless. And they basically, in the end, without giving everything away, does he defeat the bad guy? Yeah, he does. And they kind of tie everything up. He gets the girl in the end, right? They fade off into the sunset. And it's basically kind of like, we'll see where we take this character next. So interestingly enough, about a year before they finished with this issue, they had another story that they were working on that was being put together. And that's issue number 8. This is the final issue. They had a storyline and some art that was worked on by Bill Mantlo and Russ Heath. for Son of Satan. I guess that was in between or before they had other switches in writers and artwork. And it was kind of like a one-off issue that didn't really go anywhere. It wasn't fully finished and fleshed out, but they felt bad that they had it sitting out there and it hadn't been used. So they said, you know what? We'll bring Son of Satan back for one more issue. We'll allow Mantlo and Heath to tell the little one-off story that they have, and that's this issue right here, which I think Russ Heath is terrific on this book, as you'll see. He's got this kind of Jim Starlin sort of flair to his artwork, I think, which really works well. Maybe also Barry Windsor Smith kind of reminds me of that a little bit. And this is just cool and creepy and evil looking stuff here. And man, I would have loved to have seen, these guys work together a little bit more. Really cool stuff. And, but it's not a full issue's worth of stuff here. They actually have a little side story all the way at the back for a couple pages. But as a cool little one-off story, I think this is really cool. And I'm glad they decided to publish this and not let it kind of sit out there, And basically, his father once again admits defeat at the hand of his son, and then at the end, they basically give you this little old story from God knows where, little mini story. And that's it. That's the last we would see in his own book until years later, I think in the 90s, where they would do a little run where Daimon Hellstrom changes his name to Hellstorm, and they do like a 6-issue run or something like that. But before then, this character would appear in Marvel 2-in-1 with The Thing. I think he's also in Marvel Team Up with Human Torch, and a whole bunch of issues sporadically over a number of years in the Defenders. He would become an on-again, off-again member of the Defenders, which is pretty cool. And I think that's kind of a good place for him. Very powerful character, very much kind of sort of like an anti-hero, sort of. He would later on become much, much more of just like a strict hero, but with a darker side to him. But yeah, cool character. I've always liked him, but you could totally see why something like this didn't catch on. Trying to sell, the Son of Satan as a mainstream comic book character, even in the 70s, it's a little bit of a stretch. It's one thing to get Dracula and Frankenstein and Man-Thing and Werewolf by Night and the zombie and all that, but the Son of Satan, and to have a lot of the themes be about Satanism and witchery and witchcraft and all that stuff, it's hard, right? It's hard. I'm not surprised that this didn't do bang-up business, right? It only lasted as long as it did. But I always enjoyed it. I like the darker characters. I like the horror characters, so I always thought it was pretty cool. I was disappointed. I would have liked to have seen a little more interaction with characters like the Ghost Rider, even though, like I said, he did appear in the Ghost Rider comic twice. But, basically these almost don't count because they really didn't have much to do with each other in there, other than both tied to Satan and appearing in a couple pages together. That's about it. But yeah, just cool character. Maybe didn't fit neatly in any specific place, but that's what happened. So if you are a fan, if you've read these, let us know what you think down in the comments below. If you've never checked out any of the Son of Satan stuff, I would urge you to go investigate these. I really think the Marvel Spotlight stuff is pretty damn good. But I also like the solo series. It's a little spotty, but pretty cool. Again, another thing that hampers something like this is you don't have a consistent use of artists or writers to kind of keep the continuity going. But I will say most of the artwork in these are pretty damn good. But it's just from issue to issue, you get a artist works on 2 or 3, maybe 4 issues at a time, then they're gone, then you bring someone else in, they work a couple issues and they're gone. And the character kind of looks a little bit different every time around. So sometimes he's got the little hair thing going on here. Sometimes he's got little fangs. Sometimes he looks a little bit more muscular. Sometimes he's a little skinnier. Sometimes a little more serious. I don't know, whatever. But anyway, cool character nonetheless. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already and click on that notification bell so you get alert of all of our content as it posts. And please do hit the like button before you leave. Also down below, we got the links to the Sea of Tranquility merch page where you can get yourself a Comic Book Geezers t-shirt or a coffee mug. Help support the channel. It's greatly appreciated. And we'll see you soon here with more stuff. I'm Pete Barlow. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.